General Hayden, your book, you make an analogy. We're in talking about what we're talking about now, the importance of truth and having a culture that the norm is fact-based information exchanges. You invoke the Enlightenment.
I do.
You're the second person to do that I'm aware of. Joel Garrow, who runs Arizona State University, runs something called the Weaponized Narrative Initiative, and they do papers there examining what the Russians are doing to us. He says, Joel's an old peacenik. He says, I'm talking to all these generals. How do I excuse that to myself? Because back the young Joel Garrow who marched against the Vietnam War. The way I tell myself is it's the Enlightenment itself that's under attack.
It's easy. Sign me up. That's exactly the thesis in the book.
Yeah. Now, that raises other questions. So is Donald Trump the first postmodern president?
Let's
start with that.
Yeah. So he is the first president in what we have begun to define as the post-truth era. Okay. Oxford Dictionary Word of the Year, 2016.
Right, but I use postmodern for.
I understand.
All right, go ahead.
I understand, but my word is post-truth.
Okay.
Okay, and it's decision-making based less on data and evidence and more on feeling, preference, emotion, tribe, loyalty, or grievance. And so watch the president talk. Okay, and this is, I'm a career GI, all right? So I want to be respectful of both the office and the man, all right? So this is descriptive, but watch the president talk. With the exception of the speech he gave, telepromptered, across the river at Fort Myer with regard to Afghanistan, when the president argues for a position or lays out his expectations, he does not marshal arguments or evidence for it. He transmits it as assertion, all right? Period. And there's no fine print underneath it. And then in the defense of whatever had been asserted, he defends it by attacking those who would oppose or question it by undercutting their legitimacy. Fake news, lying media, intelligence in quotes, so-called judges. That is the very opposite of the Enlightenment's values, which is evidence-based, inquiry, pragmatic, experimental, humble in the face of complexity, willingness to change based upon observation. That's the meat of the Enlightenment. And now you have this other approach.
All right, I want to tie this back.
That's what I'm concerned about.
I understand. I want to tie this back to what the Russians are doing. So post-truth, you said postmodern. The paradox to me that I'm getting at is that the first president who behaves this way is the one who routinely attacks the college campuses and political correctness. But this term isn't new. This approach isn't new. It's been this victimization. It's sort of it comes out of the left. It comes out of the college campuses.
I have no brief to counter your argument. All right.
So now we're at the point where we've got the intellectuals on the left and we've got the president of the United States on the right saying using these same sort of tactics. So then the Russians, we've made the Russians' job very easy for them.
So let me use my metaphor here, okay? We got this cake.
They want us at each other's throats, but we already are.
Okay. Yeah. So I describe it as a three-layer cake. The first and biggest layer is us. All right? It is our political dialogue, and I am not blaming the political dialogue of the right. I am blaming the political dialogue, the victimization, the position taken by demonizing the opposition. All right? Now, a couple years back, a particular political candidate, Donald Trump, recognized that. So I'm now to the second layer of the cake, the administration. Recognized it, exploited it, and frankly, my judgment, he makes it worse. He makes it worse sometimes by what he does. He really makes it worse by what he says. All right? So I've got a basic layer. It's us. Now I've got an administration more effect than cause, exploiting it, but worsening it. And then I get to the third layer of the cake, smaller than the other two. That's the Russians. And all the Russians are doing is, whoa, this is easy. And they flow back and take advantage because what it is they want to do is that which we are doing to ourselves anyway, which is to divide and incapacitate us. Let me give you a number, all right? In terms of this division and what's going on and post-truth and demonizing the opposition, 85% homegrown, 15% Russian.
Do you think that the Russian campaign during the election had any effect at all on the outcome?
So the answer is yes, but I can't prove it, and I sure as hell can't measure it, so now we're done talking about it. Okay? It's an unknowable. All right. Now the
well,
president.
it's unknowable, but if no one has been able to come up with.
There's no methodology to count it. It's an influence operation. So I can't measure it. All right. But I do know that candidate Trump called attention to WikiLeaks 162 times in the last 30 days of the campaign. So somebody thought it made a difference. All right. So, but again, I got to go back to where I began. I can't measure it. All right. And therefore, we're done. Donald Trump is the legitimate president of the United States. Move on.
General, I wrote a story. If you lose the closest election in history, I'm talking now from the Hillary Clinton side.
Yeah.
There's 50 reasons.
Oh,
you lost.
I'm not.
This is one of them.
Exactly.
That's what you're saying.
But you didn't ask me to rack and stack them. They said, did it influence it?
Yeah.
My judgment says, yeah, probably, but I can't measure it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, my question is that by saying it had an immeasurable impact, it had some impact. We don't know what the impact is, but it certainly affected. Aren't we sort of playing into the Russian narrative?
Yeah, isn't that the
because
truth?
aren't we saying,
Yeah.
if we're saying that our electoral college or our electoral system rather is so vulnerable that a relatively small effort on the part of the Russians,
yeah.
that could influence our campaign to the point where it could potentially delegitimize the outcome.
No, I see. I've not used the word delegitimize. In fact, I've gone precisely the opposite. He is the legitimate president of the United States. All right.
Right.
So, and there are an ocean of factors,
right.
and good
but
people.
Aren't we sowing the same doubt in our system by doing that you're accusing others of doing in terms of using social media for their purposes?
I get the point. I totally understand the point. All right, just one counterpunch, and then I'll throw myself on the mercy of the court here. It's the president who campaigned that the system was rigged, all right? Which is a perfect echo of the Russian effort. All right, so there's a lot of this going around. All right, so yes, but it's a broader question. It's just not about the campaign. It's the broader pushback from folks like me who go on air, try to be objective. But we open ourselves up to the accusation that we're that deep state thing and we're anti-democratic, right? And so I really do, and I write about this in the book. I really do try to be what I am, which is the fact witness, and not make judgments about the person of the president. I can comment on his actions. I like that. I don't like that, but not about the character of the president. I just think we have no legitimacy for that. Now the problem becomes is I think Donald Trump, my view, is the most norm-busting president we have ever had. And so we've got a lot of institutions pushing back against the norm-busting of the president. Okay? Actually, it's all those evidence-based institutions like intelligence, law enforcement, justice, science, scholarship, and journalism. But the danger is in pushing back against the president's norm-busting, these institutions might bust their own norms, thereby
that's my fear.
Thereby worsening
about the press.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the press becomes obsessed with a particular issue. Intelligence, maybe they leak, or they say publicly more things. Well, say publicly more things than they should. Law enforcement becomes more focused on this than they might otherwise be. So I get all of that, okay? And so we have to be very careful because we can make it worse in the way, but that is not an argument for not arguing.
I agree, but can I follow that with an example? The example that came to mind, James Comey, it's in his memo, so this is his words. He tells the President of the United States, I don't do weasel things, I don't leak. And he comes out of the White House and goes in his car and starts typing up the notes. Well, maybe that's a weasel thing, maybe it isn't, but he leaked. He said he leaked. So this would be an example where the norm busting then is on the other side.
Maybe.
In response to...
Yeah, and I wasn't in Jim's circumstance, and we'd have to go to the blackboard and get all the fine print. Is that technically a leak? Was it technically classified? I get all that, but that's not important. What's important is the argument, is that in pushing back, are you doing things then that you should not otherwise do? Or in other words, are you cheapening your argument?
There's more information about cybersecurity, including information on General Hayden's new book on our website. Just go to realcleardefense.com and you'll get a prompt to go to our cybersecurity page.